Good morning. Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, thanks so much for joining us. We got an exciting show in store for you this morning. We're going to be talking with Pat Kane. He's trying to get the Grange Halls active again. Now, the Addison Grange Hall that he's a part of is pretty active. They have a meeting the third Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. We're going to talk to him what a Grange meeting is all about and the history of the Grange. And of course, if you know the name Pat Kane, we'll be talking with him a little bit about his music career as well. We've got a lot of topics to get to in a short amount of time. I do want to highlight tomorrow on the program, we'll be talking to Sheriff Jim Allard because there's a lot going on, obviously, with bail reform. I want to pick his brain on that. But they also have a special memorial tribute coming up I'm going to tell you about a little bit later on for police officers. That's coming up. But first, yesterday on the program, I spent quite a long time on this, which was the scary fact that younger people would give up their right to vote as long as it meant they got to keep TikTok, social media app, TikTok. Yet there's a report coming out today, and this is where I sometimes question knee-jerk articles like this. Officials say social media is hurting teens. Scientists say it's complicated. I mean, what's so complicated? You've heard a lot of people compare it, social media apps to, well, in this case, big tobacco, digital fentanyl, somebody has called it. But according to American Psychological Association, they released a complex picture, if you will, of the relationship between teens and these various platforms. Now, here's the problem I have with it, because I'm looking at it and I think, how can we not, again, we have this happen so often on the program, but we're seeing this with our own eyes, these problems that arise due to social media. So how can they tell us it's not hurting young people? You think about body image, you think about just, and I know this came out early, in the early days of Facebook, where it looks like your friends have the perfect life and you're sitting at home going, wow, they've got it made. What am I doing wrong? So this has been, and it's not just on young people, it's on adults as well. You've probably seen it in your own life. So I kind of read through the lines here and I'm thinking, what am I missing? How is this not harmful? Because they said it's not inherently beneficial or harmful to young people. That's what they came up with. We'll boil it down. The group said that while results showing a casual link between social media and harms to teens are rare, it could be part because the data needed to draw these conclusions, their official conclusion, may be available within technology companies, but not to outside researchers. So they're not getting the hard data and yet coming up with this conclusion. It almost seems, and I'm not suggesting this, but you would almost wonder if it wasn't something to benefit, the research was done in a way to benefit social media. Because if you're talking about an addiction so strong that someone says, boy, so many have died for our right to vote, so many people have given up so much civil rights to vote, and yet I am willing to give up that right just for the pleasure of going on TikTok. And if you didn't join us yesterday, 59% of young adults said that they would choose TikTok over their voting rights. That's among young adults. Now you go to teens, 13 to 17, 64% of those said they would give up their right to vote to keep that content flowing. Now you might say, well, young people, they're not always thinking towards the future and about how important it is to vote. It's still, it ties in with that report that we saw where civics and history, the level that these kids are grading at are so low that may have a lot to do with it. And what's really being taught when it comes to civics and what is being taught in history? That's another major question. But you tie these all in, and it's a disaster waiting to happen if we're not already there. When we talk about the future of our country, the future of participation in our democracy. So I know we talked about that a little bit yesterday, but I was very shocked when they tried to suggest there's no scientific harm of this social media, and yet they don't really even have the data they need to draw these conclusions. Interesting, but that was on the mainstream media. this morning, so I thought I'd bring it to you. We do have to take a short break. We're going to be talking with Pat Kane a little bit earlier than 7:20, so I want you to stay tuned because that'll be coming up shortly. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio right here on Market Street. We are back with Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, you can contact me. I've been receiving some very great comments about what we've been discussing on the program the last, few months now. I think yesterday would have been officially 2 months on the air. It's hard to believe. It's going fast, but I hope you're having as much fun as I'm having with the program. And remember, it's always about you and spreading various ideas, various opinions. So please contact me with what your thoughts are on the issues of the day. We are going to be talking with Pat Kane here in just a moment. Before that, I was interested when I first saw this. Let's get that off the screen there for just a moment. Governor Hochul's favorability has fallen to its worst ever rating. I was looking at this from Siena, released this poll. A quote from Siena pollster Stephen Greenberg said, "While voters think that the recently passed budget and many of its specifics will be good for New York. Okay. At the same time, they also gave Hochul her worst ever favorability rating, the first time it's been underwater." Now, according to this poll, they asked 810 registered voters, so not a huge number, but 45% of New Yorkers have an unfavorable opinion of Hochul compared to 40% who view her favorably. Isn't it always interesting when people have no opinion? How do they always seem to get so many of those people? Voters were also split whether Hochul is a strong leader, with 40% saying she is, and the same amount saying she is not. So do you believe Governor Hochul is a strong leader? I think if you follow the budget negotiation and how she handled that, I would not suggest that's strong leadership. I would also suggest that having Mr. Sullivan, that kind of shady character from Colorado, helping her make her policy decisions, not the best idea either. I would also think about the times that she just would randomly, when it seemed like negotiations were getting closer, throw in something completely off the wall. So I don't know if that's leadership, and I also think caving on some of these issues, specifically, yes, she gave us a little bit with bail reform, but let's face it, nowhere near where it needs to be. A strong leader would have went in there and said, okay, you want to keep putting off the budget, you want to keep doing these extensions, fine, we'll keep doing them until we get some serious change. Because if she's looking at these poll numbers, she's got to remember, Lee Zeldin did a great job hitting her on the crime problem in all of New York. So that's why she thought, and she has been touting it, the small little changes to bail may make her look tough on crime. I don't think it does, and I think this poll highlights that exact scenario, where she could have seen much better rating if she would have stayed strong on public safety and bail reform and so much more. And that's why, again, Lee Zeldin was so successful in his campaign. Yes, he didn't win, but it's a Republican New York. Look at this. I mean, if you look at these polling numbers, they actually said, I have the whole report here from Siena, New York Democrats would renominate Biden 56%. They would like to see another candidate 40%. That's higher than the national average. They're happy. New York voters are happy with the minimum wage increase. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a lost cause. I would never say that. We can't give up on New York just like we can't give up on the country. I would never say that. But that's why a lot of people are leaving the state, because they see polling number like this. And I always say take polls with a grain of salt. But you see that this budget was supported, that you see some of the more radical positions were overall supported. Not huge numbers, but overall supported. That's a very scary thought about the future of our state. I will add, just as a side note, because I mentioned Biden, Republicans in New York State, 60% want Trump, 32% want someone else. So let's take a short break. When we come back, Pat Kane will be our guest right here on Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program, and joining me in the studio is Pat Kane. Pat, thanks so much for being on the show.
Hello, Frank. Good to be here.
We have so much to talk about, but first I want to start because we talk so much on this program about community and the importance of community. And you've got active in the Grange in Addison. How important were Grange halls to the community originally?
Well, originally that would have been a focal point of the community. Right. So I've been active in the Grange since I was 5 years old, or even earlier, because my family grew up with it. Yeah.
What kind of things? They probably have town hall meetings there.
Yes.
Pretty much anything that the community got involved in was at the Grange.
Yes, that's one way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. The Grange was formed back in 1870.
Okay.
The very first Grange was in Fredonia, New York.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So many things happened in upstate New York at that time that it's kind of interesting to think that like Mormonism began in upstate New York.
Crazy.
But it was because of probably because of the Erie Canal and all the development that happened in a few short years.
Right.
And upstate New York became really, and western New York.
Sure.
It's tough because when I'm talking to people from the city or from anywhere else, you try to differentiate that, because like we were just in Scotland last week, and you have to be careful when you say you're from New York because everybody thinks of New York City.
Of course.
So anyway, all of upstate and western New York was helped to develop by that Erie Canal and then finally the railroad, and so you had, as I said, Mormonism, but spiritualism, and the women's movement, and the Grange were all things that sort of began in that area.
Isn't that interesting?
The Grange became a national organization, basically just to help keep the traditions of farming and keep the traditions of the agricultural life.
Right.
They could see right after the Civil War that America was going to be overwhelmed by industrialism. So, and they could see that the farming way of life was becoming less and less cherished, let's say.
Right.
But so, while you have a whole lot of organizations, Cooperative Extension and the Farm Bureau and various organizations that are supposed to be for the benefit of farming, the one thing that the Grange also brought in was a spiritual aspect of the thing.
Now, what are you currently doing at the Addison Grange? Like, I know you're holding meetings, and it's the third Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. So what's a typical meeting like?
Yeah, a typical meeting runs about 2 hours, and it's open to the family. It's open to the public.
Okay.
You don't have to be a member to go to the Grange meetings and take part and put in your 2 cents. So in days gone by, you were supposed to be a member in order to come and participate fully in a meeting. At this point, we do ask that people who are actually voting on something be members.
Okay.
But people can come and talk and debate or listen or whatever. Just come and enjoy it. There's always a little bit of music.
Oh, very nice.
There's always, the Grange is not actually affiliated with any political party.
Okay.
Or any religion.
Okay.
But as I'm fond of saying, they are patriotic.
Yes.
And they are reverent.
Yes.
So there is a few prayers to start the meeting. There's a salute to the flag and things like that, and then we get on to the various topics that we're discussing.
And what are some of the topics? I mean, I guess I've never been to a Grange meeting. I'm trying to think, and you said there's voting. What kind of things are you voting and saying?
Well, for instance, right now, in the last couple of months, we're actually talking about sending resolutions to the state legislation.
Oh, okay.
State legislature.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So these are resolutions. These are ideas that State Grange feels are important enough that they should put their whatever clout
stamp
they
of
have.
approval. Yeah, sure.
Stamp of approval, clout, whatever. And they try to influence
have a little bit of
how
influence.
laws are made some way or another.
Well, that's great. Have the legislature, have they been in the past pretty receptive?
They're pretty receptive, although the Grange itself has been, I guess you'd have to say, has been declining in its membership and in its, therefore, in its influence. It's been declining over the last 50 years.
Sure.
mostly because there are so many few farmers.
Right. Few farmers, and we've talked about on the
Yeah.
program, people don't want to become members of anything anymore. The lack of
That is a true
community involvement is very sad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it makes sense. So if someone's watching this right now, how can they become a member of the Addison Grange, or maybe if there's a Grange near them?
Right. You can just go to a meeting and ask to be a member.
Okay. Wow.
It's as simple as that. I mean, as far as what
No
we're
hazing?
concerned,
No hazing.
yeah. This is an important thing.
Yeah.
There used to be degrees of membership. You would take kind of a, I don't know, what do they call it, taking the degrees.
Okay.
So you would go and be, that's the word, would be inculcated into the more deeper aspects
Wow.
of belonging to them.
Yeah.
Because at one time it had been influenced by the Masons and by Masonic rituals.
Oh.
So
That makes sense.
so I'm not sure how many degrees of membership there are for to become a high degree Mason.
Yeah.
There must be somewhere around 70 or
Oh,
something.
yeah, probably.
Like
Yeah.
that. Well, okay, in the Grange there were 7.
Oh,
There
okay.
were just 7 degrees, and but it wasn't quite as serious of a thing. But still, now you don't have to be a certain degree member to belong to a local Grange like Addison.
Okay.
So anyone can come. You can bring your kids. There's refreshments before the meetings. Nobody's asking you for money.
That's different than other groups, too. Yeah.
So to be a member, yes, you do pay dues
Yeah, of course.
to be a member. And all you do is just ask if you want to be a voting active member, and that's about it.
If someone doesn't have a Grange in their community, can they join another community's Grange? Could I become a
Sure.
member of Addison?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just depends on how far you're willing to drive.
Okay.
You know,
Oh, so there you
there's, now this is an interesting statistic, I think,
go. Uh-huh.
that in Steuben County,
Mhm.
at one point, I believe it was in the 1960s,
Okay.
there were about 60 Granges around Steuben County,
Wow.
and there were more than that earlier.
Mhm.
But as the membership started to decline, we're down to 2 active Granges in Steuben County.
Oh, that's
at
sad.
At
Yeah.
the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to think.
Yeah.
So you have a local Grange, and you have county Grange, state Grange, and national Grange.
Okay.
So, and at each level, you have officers who help to administer whatever goes on, including these resolutions that we send on to the state legislature.
Where's the National Grange based out of?
They can be anywhere.
Oh, I see.
I mean, they're based out of Washington, D.C.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
But like the National Convention, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, the next National Convention will be held in Niagara Falls
Okay.
this year. And I've only been to a few of them. I went to one in Omaha, and I don't know why you have to say Omaha a certain way.
Yeah, I know, you do.
It just feels like.
By law.
So, and I went to one in Sacramento, California, went to one in Lancaster, Pennsylvania,
Oh, okay.
and now this one's going to be in,
Niagara Falls.
am I looking the right way?
I know.
Over there in
I don't
Niagara
ever
Falls.
picture a Grange meeting ever being in Vegas. Why is that? Right? That doesn't seem where you
I
have
have
your
not,
convention.
I've never heard of that.
No, no.
It's true.
You should run and get up in the ranking. And we're going to change the topic a little bit, but I do
Yeah.
want to remind people that the meeting's the third Thursday at 7 p.m. each month, of course, in Addison at the Grange. Can you stay with us for a quick break?
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. YDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. Our guest, Pat Kane. We're talking about the Grange Halls, specifically the one in Addison, where they meet the third Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. You were talking a little bit about the resolutions you'll be sending to our legislature. Could you give us maybe a little more specifics?
Sure. We have one resolution right now that we're working on, just working on the language of it, but it's to give bereavement days off to people who have lost a child, like for like someone who might have suffered a miscarriage
Okay.
or something like that. That perhaps we've come across specific situations where people almost lose their jobs over the fact that they had to take some days off after
right.
having a miscarriage.
Unbelievable.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So we're sending a resolution into the state legislature to support people getting bereavement days for such things.
Okay. So it's really some heavy stuff then too. It's
it's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
How about this for heavy?
Okay. Uh-oh. Buckle up.
You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I propose a resolution that, considering that we have what you might call government support in the form of welfare, where people are paid basically to do nothing.
Sure.
Because they have nothing, and because they have no job, because of a lot of different things,
right.
That they have welfare or various programs that they're helped out. Well, I have no argument with that.
Okay.
But considering that, it seems to me that the people who work their heads off farming and creating the food that everybody eats have no safety net.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm proposing that anyone who's a full-time farmer, especially family farms, because family farms are what's disappearing in America, and that someone who has a family farm gets paid a minimum wage for 40 hours.
Oh,
because we know they're working more than 40 hours,
Yeah.
so they just get a basic minimum wage
Interesting.
for being farmers.
Now,
And then they get to keep whatever they make on the farm as well.
okay, so when you propose that, then it's open for discussion in front of the whole meeting. And
Yeah.
So you say that in a way that makes it sound like the discussions get lively. Is that
They
say?
can get lively, all right. But
That's interesting.
I brought that up last year at the state session here in Corning. That was actually held here at the Radisson in Corning.
Nice. Okay.
And I brought up the idea, and nobody shouted it down.
Well, there you go.
I'll put it that way. And I had one guy follow me out of the room wanting to say to me, you know what, this idea would have saved our family farm if only we'd had something like that when I was graduating from college, let's say, where he said, well, my dad could see that there was no future in this. He told me to just get out of it.
Yeah.
And so many farms have followed that pattern. They just give up and sell out, and until there's fewer and fewer family farms left.
Yeah.
Well, so what's important about that is that we're talking about kind of the basics of our society is sort of based on the idea of our old rural roots, and we're still trying to follow those, and yet we're driving them all out of business.
Yeah. It's very true. So that's so interesting. So you're gonna vote on that soon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This next meeting we're going to be sort of cleaning up the language of it, making it plain and simple.
Okay.
Put it into the best, and then we'll vote to send it on.
Okay.
And if it doesn't,
it goes nowhere. Sure.
But it's just one of the ideas that we're discussing.
These meetings sound fun. Do you hold any other events at the Grange?
Well, yes. See, now there's a couple of things that the Grange also helps out with. This past year, the Grange helped to start a farmers market in Addison.
Oh, yeah.
So every Saturday, I think it was starting at 8 and ending at 2. From 8 to 2, they were starting farmers markets up on Main Street in Addison.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it got pretty successful last year. A lot of people started coming to it, and I think they're going to start it back up at the last Saturday of May.
Oh, okay. So coming right up.
It should be May 26th, I think.
Yeah, right around.
I got my calendar, but I'm
the last Saturday.
not going to look at it now.
Yeah.
But anyway, the last Saturday of May, they're going to start it back up, and it'll run all summer. So that's one thing we're doing. And another thing that we're doing, I think that's successful, is we've rejuvenated the Addison Square Dance.
Oh, that's great.
That was something that was kind of a private, ongoing event for several years. When COVID came by, it kind of fell on its face. So we've got people coming back to the square dances on Addison, and they're pretty well attended. It's been successful.
Yeah.
But it's that's every third Friday of the month. So the day after our Grange meeting, at the end of the Grange meeting, we set up all the chairs and tables for the square dance the following night.
Yeah.
So there's and the Addison Grange is kind of like volunteering to help run the kitchen, help take names at the door, and run the raffles and things like that. But we have some great local musicians who play. Harold Benjamin and the Country Boys.
I love those.
They're going to be playing this next one on May 19th.
Okay.
I think it is Friday the 19th.
Yeah.
And quite often we have them several times a year, as well as John I'll think of his last, John Taft.
Okay.
John Taft and the Kawaneski Valley Boys. They played there several times a year, and several others. The McNetts from the McNett family band from Wellsboro. Yeah, they came up and played.
Oh, that's so nice.
And there's a few others.
Yeah.
My own band plays there.
I was going to ask, are you playing that? That was going to be my segue. I was hoping that you would mention, because I'm sure a lot of people watching go, I know you, Pat. I've seen you play a million times. So you still playing a lot?
Still play quite a lot. Yeah.
Because you're busy with that schedule, aren't you?
We're pretty busy, and I've been finding that since COVID, even before that, I had given up playing in bars. I had played in bars for
your whole life,
for my whole life, basically. And I just thought, well, I've done enough of that. Now it's time to, carry on without it.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I don't play in bars any longer. But we're doing community concerts, dances. Heaven forbid, people are asking me to play for their funerals and
oh my gosh,
divorce parties.
You played it all.
Yeah.
When did you start playing? Was that going all the way back? You said you've been active in the Grange your whole life. Was it a family involvement?
Yeah, we've sang. Our family always sang and sang together, and we did things in the Grange. The Grange always promoted people singing. Anyway, every Grange meeting involves probably at least 3 songs where everyone's expected to. Like an opening song, the closing song, and then usually at least a couple more songs during the program.
Yeah.
So, and everybody gets up and sings, or sometimes it's just a performance, but quite often it's everyone there just joining in.
Yeah. That sounds like so much fun. When did you decide that playing music was going to be maybe more than a hobby?
That's tough. I guess probably it was during my last couple of years of college.
Okay.
We used to sing a lot when we'd go out for the evening, let's put it that way.
Okay, yeah. Not to the Grange Hall.
Not other places. That's an important thing, At the Grange Hall, there's never alcohol involved.
Oh, okay.
It's just not. It's specifically not done at Grange meetings or Grange halls or Grange events.
Okay.
And so, but when I was in college, I won't say I majored in it, but minored. Yes, yeah, very good. And we would go, and the thing that was interesting to me was, I was never a heavy drinker or anything. I was raised to be a teetotaler. And we never really, that wasn't part of our lives growing up.
Yeah.
But when I went to college, it seemed like it was part of everything. And so I told my friends, okay, look, if you're going to make me drink alcohol, then I'm going to show you how to really party. So instead of just standing around with drinks and being obnoxious, we sang, we'd dance, we'd play games, we'd have fun, and be obnoxious.
And that'd be Well, we have before we go, we got 2 questions from viewers. So the first one is, what got you into playing Irish music specifically?
We in our family, we've always had Irish music somewhere in the background, and so that's one part of it. But the other thing was that when we got together in college and we were singing around the table and having fun, and people started asking us to come and sing for events, and I'd go like, especially for St. Patrick's Day, because I brought a lot of those songs to the table. So to speak.
Of course.
We'd all take turns leading off songs, and by the end of the night we would have sung an hour's worth at least of just Irish songs, let alone everything else we were singing, old Broadway hits and this and that, whatever came to mind, and when I realized I could make a little money doing this, I decided to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, that's great. So before you quit playing bars and like that, what was your typical St. Patrick's Day like? How many shows would you play?
There were times that I would play 5 shows in a day.
Wow.
Yeah. The most outrageous day was the day that I started in Elmira playing, and then played in Corning here, and went to Buffalo and played in one day. I remember as I recall, the Hoy family here.
Of course.
They had one of their family got married on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh.
So I had to come and play for that. So that was the middle of the day. And then the end of the day was up in South Buffalo.
Wow.
But there were several other times where I'd play 5 times in a day. As long as it was close by, we'd play for a couple hours, pack up, go somewhere else, play. And so for the last several years, I've just stuck to one place.
Okay.
But played 5 times.
Okay, so it's, you just, well, it saves on gas.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I've been working for Mike Sullivan at Hilltop in Elmira.
Of course, yeah, I saw that.
For probably 30 years, or I don't know.
Wow.
I've lost track.
Exactly.
And we've played every St. Patrick's Day there for a long, long time. And now that's what happens on St. Patrick's Day.
Do you look forward to St. Patrick's Day, or do you dread it now?
Well, it's
mixed.
both. It's mixed. It's a mixed thing.
Everybody else is having fun, and you're working all day.
Working. So, when the end of the day comes around, I'm about ready to go home and go to bed. But,
that makes sense. But yeah, that's probably 2 a.m. So final question, this again from a viewer. Yeah. How does someone join the Beartown Boys gang?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well,
that's got to be in your blood. You can't just join, right?
There is, of course, you've heard the song Beartown Boys. And Chase, I should have brought one. I should have brought my CD, and we could have just played it. Yeah. But my cousins from Elmira actually are related to the folks in Beartown, so they go around with actual Beartown Boys T-shirts on.
Oh, really? That's funny.
And, so they got them made up on their own, and
that's so funny.
Yeah. Well, the old days when people would work hard all week long, you work your head off for a whole week, and then go dancing on Saturday night and dance all night long.
They're crazy.
After just having a hard week's work.
Yeah, backbreaking
work. Get out and dance. So over in Beartown, they used to have these Saturday night specials where one person or another would host, and people would come over to their house and clear the tables and chairs out of the way, and they'd dance around the kitchen and down the hallway all night, and they'd just have somebody play piano, because a lot of homes had pianos in them in those days, or Greeley Lyons would come by with his fiddle. He had a peg leg. He would just stomp on the floor and play his fiddle, and that was the band.
That was the whole band.
Yeah. And people like my father then would dance, but he would call the calls while they were dancing.
Oh.
So he would just call calls out while everyone would dance all night, and so that's where the song originated. But you could have been one of the Canes, you could have been one of the Troys, one of the Kingstons, one of the Smiths. There's the Pearsons were up there. They I wasn't ready for this question.
Oh, well, no.
But anyway,
there's plenty in the gang.
There was, Well, and some of those folks are still living up there.
Isn't that amazing?
And the Bears are still living up there.
That's for sure. Well, we are out of time. I want to thank you for giving us so much time, and I want to make sure that we, again, highlight that the Grange and Addison U meet the third Thursday at 7 p.m. What would you say to somebody thinking about going to a meeting?
I'd say you're more than welcome.
Show up and have fun, right?
Yep, just show up and have fun.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Frank.
Of course, anytime. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. We ran just a little bit late with Pat Kane. That's my fault. I had so much fun talking with him. So I've got to take another short break. But before that, I received this in email. You can always contact me with any kind of event you have coming up, charitable or otherwise. And this is a skate park summit that's going to be happening tomorrow at 6 p.m. Essentially what this is to meet and gather ideas and input from skate park users to figure out how they can fix and improve the skate park at Eldridge Park, or perhaps make it says here, a better skate park at Brand Park on the south side. So I wanted to highlight that before I forgot, before I ran out of time. So we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and I'm your host, Frank Acom. One of the major topics that has been pretty much everywhere in the media, whether to downplay it or to just highlight it, has been John Durham's report on the FBI's Russia-Trump probe. I've got a couple of different looks at this from various outlets, so you get all perspectives on it. Before that, I just have to read this because we've been receiving great comments. Earlier in the program, I mentioned that young people, again, I mentioned on yesterday's program too, would rather give up their voting rights than give up their TikTok. So this person writes in, it would be nice if high schools could do the TikTok poll. So in the high school, say, okay, we're going to do the same exact poll. Then all the kids that choose TikTok over voting lose any and all right to have any say in anything in their school. Show them that living examples of what their decisions have consequences. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's coming out over the air or not. Sirens. Show them that there's consequences. I think that's a good idea. I don't think it would go well, but I think it would go well. It'd be a good learning lesson, but I think there could be some issues there with upset parents and kids, as there always is. All right, John Durham's report, CNN. This is coming from CNN, not someone that I thought would necessarily even report on it, saying what kind of the highlights. Durham finds that the FBI did rush to investigate Trump. Claims the FBI had no real evidence of collusion before launching the probe. There's claims of FBI personnel bias. Durham, and I'm just reading this quick because we have to take another break, but I want you to get, again, coming from CNN, there are highlights on this. Durham claims the FBI had different standards for Trump and Clinton, but you notice how they still have to preface it by saying Durham claims. Okay. FBI failed to corroborate Steele's dossier allegations. So that's what the quote-unquote highlights were from this investigation and specifically the report that came out just yesterday. We're going to get some reaction to that when we come back. As always, you can contact me if you would like to weigh in on the topic, but we need to take a short break. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. So we're talking about the Durham report. Of course, the former president, kind of typical social media reaction to this on his Truth Social, saying, wow, after extensive research, Special Counsel John Durham concludes the FBI never should have launched the Trump-Russia probe. In other words, the American public was scammed just as it's being scammed right now. I'm not going to go, and then he called it treason. I'm not going to go through all of his various truth posts now, but I want to just get everybody's reaction as we are running just a little bit late. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri was on Jesse Waters' Primetime last night, and he says there needs to be a lot more than reports in this. People need to be prosecuted for this. The Clinton campaign and Hillary Clinton herself. Is it any coincidence that she is tweeting about collusion at exactly the same time her campaign operatives are feeding this, we'll say, garbage to the FBI? He's even calling for the end of the FBI as we know it. So you're going to see both sides. We saw CNN. We're seeing, here's one. Elise Stefanik. Stefanik released her statement. The long-awaited Durham report confirmed that the American people what they already knew. The individuals at the highest levels of government attempted to overthrow democracy when they illegally weaponized the federal government against Donald J. Trump. The criminal abuse of power went all the way up to the Oval Office, where President Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden were in on it from the very beginning. I'm not going to read her whole statement either. You get the general gist of it. You have the other side saying there was nothing here, especially with the length it took to put this report together. I think the overall reaction really has been that there's, I'm not going to say nothing new here, but kind of what they've been saying. Many people knew this from the beginning. Now, the media is not covering it quite as much as you would think, but I was surprised to see that Jake Tapper from CNN, boy, CNN has taken a hit in ratings, but CNN saying it is devastating to the FBI. And I think that's what it really boils down to, whether or not you think Trump was wronged or whether or not you like Trump or whatever the case may be. You have to look at the FBI's role in this and this kind of weaponization of the FBI against candidates that certain people don't like and the precedent that sets. So he says it's devastating to the FBI and to a degree, and this again, Jake Tapper from CNN, to a degree does exonerate Donald Trump. And that's something that CNN, I'm sure, wanted to make known after that town hall that's received so much pushback. We have to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We've got one segment left, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We're just wrapping up. We were talking about the Durham probe and what that found. Jerry Nadler, a ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, of course, Democrat from New York, said it's just a political rehashing of what was already known. Mr. Durham has one last time overpromised and underdelivered. Nothing in this report changes the outcome of the Mueller investigation. And the media overall, though I did mention Jake Tapper, the media overall has suggested, and I hate this term, but that it's a nothing burger, much overused political speak there. But, you know, I guess time will tell on this if we learn anything else or where this goes. I know it's not going to heal any kind of divide. That's for sure, as you see some of the rhetoric coming from the media and elsewhere. Excuse me. A couple quick things because we're out of time. Mike Pence's allies have launched a super PAC to back his possible 2024 White House bid. So a lot of speculation whether or not he will be running. There's been Rick Perry mentioned the other day that he may, Chris Christie. It could be quite a list. And, of course, the one person that everybody's waiting to hear from, Ron DeSantis. Nothing yet, but I guess the rumor is that it could be coming very soon, right around Memorial Day, that he's saying to his supporters, watch out for a special announcement coming up soon. So we'll see. Hey, before we go, let me put up my contact information one last time, because as I mentioned, we always want to interview if you're having an event, a meeting, maybe your charity, your charitable group is looking for help. Please contact us and weigh in on the topics of the day. What did you think about the Durham probe? Were you surprised? Was it nothing new? I would love to hear your take on that. And if we have a chance, we will read it on tomorrow's program. Thank you to Pat Kane for being our guest. Again, the Addison Grange meets the third Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. And we want to thank Pat for being on the program. On tomorrow's show, we'll be talking with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. They've got a very special event coming up. It's the 9th Annual Law Enforcement Memorial Service at the Steuben County Sheriff's Office Memorial Park, which is located at 7007 Rumsey Street Extension in Bath. And it's coming up on this Friday at 6 p.m. So we'll talk to him about that, a little bit about bail reform. And, hey, you can contact me right there if you have any questions for Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard, who again will be our guest on tomorrow's program. We've had an exciting week. It's only Tuesday. Boy, we've got a lot covered, haven't we? So thank you for joining us, and thank you. I know I say it a lot, but thank you to everybody who have made us here at Frankly Speaking a part of your morning routine. We cannot thank you enough. So we really do appreciate it. And I hope that you'll join us tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. for Frankly Speaking right here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Hi, I'm Frank Acom. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox.